So my name is Brad Zapp. I am a serial entrepreneur, and I'm also the co-founder of Wendal. And today, I just want to talk about one of our tools, which is called TeamPrint. TeamPrint is a behavioral assessment, and it basically splits everyone in the world, when you take our assessment, into one of 22 profiles. So today, I just want to talk about my profile. I want to take what the manual says about the disruptor, and I just kind of want to translate that into me personally. And I'm going to talk about how much I believe in each one of these, or that I don't, or it applies to me, and maybe I'll end with some real world thoughts that if you have a disruptor on your team, or you're hiring people and you get a disruptor applicant, here's some things you need to know to maximize the potential of the disruptor. So first off, the disruptor out of the 5 vectors is in the enterpriser vector. And so disruptors are natural born leaders. So we like to take charge. It's natural to take charge. We just find ourselves in leadership positions. The opening paragraph of this says we are accurate risk takers who are impatient and always looking to create the next big business or industry. Natural leaders with the heart of a champion. We're also social and have an impressive ability to inspire those around them. They can adapt well to sales, operations, project leaders, business development roles. So the first thing that is the most important when I read that paragraph and I think about myself is the accurate risk taker who are impatient. So literally, I think we could have just stopped reading right there, because those 3 words describe me really well. And it's important to understand the nuances of this, because if you take the negative connotation, I think a lot of people honestly can be put off by disruptors. You'll see the impatience and you'll forget that the positive connotation of that is that we're proactive. So again, the positive part of the impatient, instead of focusing on the negative, is we're highly proactive people. So if you are hiring a disruptor, you should know that we can operate with a level of autonomy that is really second to none. You're not going to have to check in every 5 minutes and say, did you do this? Are you going to do this? When are you going to start? A disruptor probably starts whatever process before you finish your sentence. So there's good and bad to that, but it's really, really true. The other thing is accurate risk taker. I think that's a hallmark of the disruptor, because there are risk takers, like the accelerators, they're just like jump off the cliff. And then there are not risk takers, they're really accurate people, like actuaries, and they would never take a risk. So the disruptor is an oxymoron, but when I think about my personal behavior, is I like data. So I am very comfortable taking calculated risks in business. Honestly, for me, because I take so much risk as a venture capitalist, as a tech software developer, I don't take as much risks in my personal life. So I don't know if that's true for other enterprisers in general. I think I've seen that happen is we're either enterprising in our personal life and risk taking, or we're enterprising or risk taking in business. So I think if I was given a personal interview of an enterpriser, I would ask, if they came through as accelerator or disruptor, I'd probably ask them to describe what they do when they're not at work. And I would really try to figure out, is this their work profile or is this their personal profile? So I take a lot of risk in business, but very calculated. It's still risky, but I make sure that I've at least thought through the steps. So for me, I think that's really big. So out of the enterpriser, let's just go through the rest of this on the page. It says that the most unique vector difference, so that means amongst the enterprisers, what really separates the disruptor from the other ones? The disruptor is the most proactive profile. I 100% agree with this. I think the disruptor is probably the most proactive profile out of all 22. My dad called me his little ping pong ball. That's the negative connotation. But this just says we're very proactive. And we're so proactive You have to make sure that on a team or whatever the role is, that that's the behavior that you want. Do not ask a disruptor to slow down. They will leave you. They will churn out. You do not want the disruptor. Do not take away their natural proactivity. Find something where proactivity is rewarded, where that's the type of action that you want. That is so true. Let's go through some strengths. Says thrives on being challenged, willing to build employees, not afraid of successors, focused on hitting their goals. Out of all three of those, the most important one that I self-identify with is willing to build employees, not afraid of successors. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people in a job interview or in a team setting ever to admit and say, I'm afraid of this next person. But I think if you're a leader, team leader, or C-suite or whatever, you can kind of see the activity of a lot of people where they are afraid of the successors. But for me personally, I've been a CEO, or I've been in the workforce 21 years, and I've either been in charge of myself or leading a team of people for 19 of 21 years. Never once has it even crossed my mind about whoever the most talented person was, stressed about the talented individuals that were underneath me, working for me. I believe if you interviewed every single teammate, employee, intern, administrative assistant, whatever, I've always been about them as people and their growth. Today I have 2 partner level VCs and 1 other principal VC, and I openly talk to them about is, hey, if we grow you and you have a better opportunity, I am for you. And that's a feather, I think, in any leader's cap to have their people grow. Take my job, take something else. I've always been for personal growth. So if you have trouble in your organization that you feel that your talent is leaving and you don't understand why, then maybe you have the wrong leadership, and maybe you could try a disruptor, because I totally buy into that personally, I get a lot of energy from building into people. I do think that's another hallmark. The other ones are true, but they just don't scream out the way that one does to me. Let's go to some potential pitfalls. Can be hard-headed, does not like delays, may not adhere to rules. Maybe it's my hard-headedness that I don't want to say there's any pitfalls to, but let me say it like this, and I'm sure you're all laughing there. Can be hard-headed, but that's in a good way. So if we get convicted, we're not easily thrown off the top of the mountain. We're not easily going to give up the flag. So because we are accurate, then people are going to have to present data that would get me to change my mind about an initiative. So I'm okay with some experiments and some failures, but I'm not going to try to outguess myself. If I've made a hypothesis and I've made a maneuver, I'll stick with it until the earth really moves beneath me and suggests that I need to be changed. So is that hard-headed? Fine. But I think you need to understand there's a positive to that. Does not like delays. This is the one that screams off the page. I am horrible in the beginning to work with and for, because I'm just not good at giving deadlines. It's kind of like if someone says, well, when do I need this video? I'll be like, yesterday. Because that's just the way the proactive nature of a disruptor thinks. We don't think in terms of deadline. We think in terms of as soon as possible. And then that communication style for some people can be tough to handle because it's not clear cut. And then even if in my head it's like not due for a week or two, I'll forget. And 2 days later, I'll ask, where's this? How many of this to be done? And they have to remind me, like, hey, I thought I had more time than that. I'll be like, oh yeah. So I'm not really coming down on teammates and employees. It's just that natural behavior. So that one screams off the page as totally true. So I think that's really important when you think about who's a disruptor working with. So we'll build into people, but this could be troublesome. I mean, I would say it's the number one piece of feedback I get from my teammates is it would be really helpful if you gave us clear communication on deadlines. So I totally buy that. Work styles, communication, authoritative, telling, articulate communicator. Yeah, I mean, not in a condescending way, or at least that's not, I don't think, at the heart of any disruptors trying to build into people. But it's almost like we just assume consent of authority as enterprisers, and we're just like, we're just going to do this. So we're just sort of telling in that way. I think it's effective once people get accustomed to it. That's been my experience in life. Some of my teammates make fun of me. They call it speaking Brad, and once they sort of do it, they're good with it. But I think early on in relationships, it can be challenging. Definitely articulate communicator. Over communication is also a hallmark of a disruptor. There's a little bit of, I think it says it up here, that usually disruptors have some social abilities, and I think that helps with communication. So I buy that. That's not screaming off the page like some of them, but it does. Delegates authority and details somewhat freely. Delegate. We love scaling. We love giving autonomy to other people. We are not good at details. It's another hallmark of a disruptor. I'm more of the figure it out. I'm not going to figure it out for you. You need to go figure it out. And that is not good for every type of teammate or employee. But for people that like creative freedom, then they would enjoy being a teammate of a disruptor. Innovative problem solver, push to decide things quickly. I'm going to focus on that. Push to decide things quickly. A clear hallmark, I definitely self-identify, is rapid decision making. Growing up, being on quick recall teams, being very comfortable making decisions without all of the informations, understanding that we can always pivot and change later. Huge hallmarks of a disruptor. They are not going to spend time processing the information or sleeping on it. Basically, the way I sort of think of the world and my decision-making process is I'll just take more swings, more at-bats than everybody else. I don't have to be as accurate as anyone else to get more hits. So I'm going to get the most hits, quite simply, because I'm going to take the most swings. And so if you start seeing if you're working with, I'm on a board company down in Knoxville, and I believe one of the other board members is an artisan, which is really on the opposite side of the circle. It's more reactive, analytical process, really wants to understand what things tick. And we're going through this strategic planning meeting, and it was the most time we had spent together post-pandemic, because we couldn't before. And he finally looks at me and he's like, "You sure like to think about things, don't you?" Kind of needling me. And I'm like, "No." So I'm totally buying that, but just understand that not everyone needs to think about things, but some people do. You'll see that, and that's a way to identify a disruptor. I definitely self-identify. Action and risk taker, responds positively to pressure, self-starter. I mean, over time, pressure is going to wear on anyone. So I'm like, we do respond positively to some pressure because we focus. And I think the impatience, proactivity, and quick decision-making, sometimes we lack focus. So pressure helps us focus. I'm buying that. But self-starter, that's the key. We don't need a lot of directions. You can just kind of say, someone could tell me conceptually what they want to do, and I'd be like, no problem, immediately formulate a plan in my hand, need no direction at all. We're going to be delivering. So I think that's pretty good. I think I more or less identify with everything about the disruptor on this page. I've pointed out a few that are just, screaming to me. And then want to leave you with what's not on this page that I've experienced as a disruptor, in my life, at home and in the business, as little nuggets to take away. Let's start with the concept of change. So there's a picture of a wrecking ball. I love that picture. I think if you have a home or you have a business and you're happy with them, do not engage with a disruptor. So a disruptor, I don't think about things like in my business. I don't just walk around here while I'm very happy with my team, my staff, our progress, but that does not stop me from saying, you know what, we should change something. And in fact, we just had our strategic planning, we changed something pretty major. And because I just have this concept of we can always get better. So disruptors are change agents. I think if you remember nothing else, that'll be huge. And my wife would agree because, and she loves me, thank God, in the house. So we built our first custom home in 2015. We picked out everything. We had a wonderful, wonderful builder here in town. And she'll tell the story better than me, but she says, literally, Brad, when we were handed the keys, you walked in with me and another contractor to start changing things immediately. Since then, we have bought a home that's 25 years old, which I love because it requires so much change. So we've been married long enough now that she just says, look, I live with you and contractors for the rest of my life. And all I will say is that's definitely disruptor. Thanks.